There are some very disturbing trends in the West that are threatening to steer us towards some of history's most epic collapses. Is rampant political corruption, out-of-control inflation via debasement, and increasingly predatory taxes barreling us towards the same fate as that of the Soviet Union or even the Roman Empire? Does Bitcoin fix this? We have a tool that for the first time in history gives humanity the ability to separate money from politics and once and for all end the state's monopoly on violence. But is it too late? Let's dive in. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently made comments blaming food inflation on corporate greed and threatened tax measures of all things if prices aren't stabilized by Canadian Thanksgiving in October. Here's a short clip of his comments.
It's not okay that our biggest grocery stores are making record profits while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table. So Minister Champagne will be calling on the heads of large grocers to come to Ottawa with a plan to address the rising cost of food. And we expect to hear from them by Thanksgiving on what their plan is to stabilize prices. And let me be very clear. If their plan doesn't provide real relief for the middle class and people working hard to join it, then we will take further action, and we are not ruling anything out, including tax measures.
As a Canadian myself, I don't even know where to begin with this. It's so painful to watch. And let me just preface this by saying this is not about left versus right politics. Trudeau's comments are either a tell of how truly economically illiterate he is, or a blatant misdirection tactic. He accuses the biggest grocery stores in the country of price gouging by pointing to their record profit, while ignoring the fact that grocery store margins are notoriously razor thin, and of course profits and nominal value are expected to increase along with record inflation. According to Yahoo Finance, in 2022, Canada's three largest grocers, Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro, collectively reported around 100 billion Canadian dollars in sales and earned just 3.6 billion in profit. That's only a 3.6% profit margin, which is very low and comparable to most grocery industries worldwide. This is typical politics under a fiat standard, misleading the public and directing their frustrations over inflation towards corporations and even more broadly capitalism, when in fact central bank money printing is largely to blame, along with government policies like predatory taxation and overregulation. Never mind Trudeau's ridiculous proposed punishment of further taxation, which of course would just be passed on to everyday Canadians through even higher grocery prices. But let's explore what's really causing record inflation of food prices in Canada. Like the rest of the fiat world, Canada printed trillions of dollars following the COVID pandemic, increasing the money supply by over 3x. That, mixed with the highest carbon tax in the entire world, also implemented by the Trudeau government, and it becomes clear what is really causing the meteoric rise in food prices. And it's not just food. Real estate inflation in Canada is out of control. Just look at the income to home price ratio in Canada versus that of the United States. Ouch. Things are looking pretty dire in America's old dusty attic. But many American states are also trending in the wrong direction. This brings us to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who recently proposed state-run grocery stores to combat rising taxes and crime, which chased out many grocery chains in recent years. This should raise the hair on the back of the necks of anyone who is a student of history. In the early 70s, Venezuela nationalized their energy sectors, which caused degradation of the oil and gas industries and resulted in production dropping by a whopping 66%. And of course, the Soviet Union and Mao's China took nationalization to the next level, which resulted in total economic stagnation and eventually tens of millions of unnecessary deaths. But no, I'm sure this time is different, and fixing food prices and nationalizing industries will have a positive effect, right? Many Bitcoiners are also drawing ominous parallels between the state of the US and other Western nations and what ultimately caused the collapse of the Roman Empire. Peter St. Onge recently wrote a fantastic newsletter outlining this comparison, using Edward Gibbon's classic book, The Fall of Rome, as inspiration. He writes, "Today, historians focus on the symptoms of Rome's fall, the consequences, the moral decay, the economic decline, the fall in public safety, the multiplying plagues from dysfunctional public services, the hollowed-out military that ultimately invited barbarian invasions. But we know these well. In fact, we're living through many of them. What's a lot more interesting is the why, because that's how you stop it. And the answer is threefold. End the causes, specifically the economic mismanagement, political corruption, and endless foreign wars. On economics, the key policies in the twilight of Rome were inflation through debasement of the currency, paired with confiscatory taxes that wiped out commerce and small industry while literally chasing landlords and tenants off the land. Many displaced or bankrupt producers become casual laborers in the cities, subsisting on the rapidly growing public dole. Free bread back then, welfare and government benefits now, perhaps universal basic income tomorrow. Finally, predatory regulation with multiplying rules bought by special interests that put remaining producers on borrowed time, running down their productive capital because the investment had already been made, but ceasing new investment so that one by one Rome's economic base burned out like dying embers, leaving darkness. As prosperity faded, the government reacted, not by pulling back, but by expanding at breakneck speed. The bread and circuses multiplied to distract an angry populace. Civil unrest multiplied as classes fought over a rapidly shrinking pie. And, above all, foreign wars were used to refocus the population on an external enemy, to drain the cities of military-age men, and to reach for the occasional glory as Rome conquered yet another far-off people at Pyrrhic cost of blood and treasury. Taken together, the empire bankrupted itself, hollowed out its economy, and used the government and war to squander what was left. The fall of Rome is a sobering lesson for us today, not only because the patterns are so obvious, but because every fallen empire follows the same pattern. The Gupta of 6th century India, the Song dynasty in China, the Spanish Empire, Victorian Britain. I believe there is still time. It's what gets me up in the morning to fight another day. Millions are waking up to what's happening and resolving to reverse it. And it's important to remember we have reversed it before. The Renaissance, the Victorian era itself, the Meiji Restoration have all reversed eras of decline, led by men and women of resolve. We're still logging more losses than wins, but I believe the tide can be turned in time that our predatory government can be leashed before it destroys us. Now, this is an excellent piece by St. Ange. I highly recommend you read it. I'm going to leave a link in the description so you can check out the whole thing. But let's focus on the leash for our government that St. Ange writes about. That leash is Bitcoin. I've voted enough in my life to learn that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which politician is in charge, as over the years, they have all proven to be serving the same masters, the central banks. It's as true with Trudeau as it is with someone like Trump. And as history has shown time and time again, a monopoly on money will always end in not only a complete collapse in the value of our time and energy, but also an unwinding of the very fabric of civilization itself. It's happened before, and it's happening again. As Satoshi Nakamoto wrote in 2009, the central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Bitcoin, for the first time ever, offers humanity an opportunity to do what Friedrich Hayek and Ayn Rand could only dream of, to once and for all separate money from politics. When this dawned on me while going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. But unfortunately, the majority of people, while generally aware of the corruption and incompetence of governments, are still willfully blind to the absolute power control of the money enables. Divisive left versus right politics and bickering cultural issues are tools leveraged by powerful governments to keep us divided and to shield us from the true cause of most of the rot we see in society today, our broken and corrupt monetary system. The most impactful vote you can cast is taking Bitcoin into self-custody. That's right, Bitcoin is my politics now. Please remember this next time you get into a political debate or a disagreement over some feeble cultural issue where each side of the argument is weaponized against the other. Bitcoin is profoundly important. By taking away the government's ability to manipulate markets and devalue society's main coordinating function, we may finally begin to see a world of unimpeded progress. One where the repeating tragedies that befell civilizations of the past might never come back to haunt us again. So what do you think? Is Justin Trudeau just plain ignorant? Or is his grocery tax a clever misdirection tactic? Is the USA in a precipitous decline on par with the fall of the Soviet Union and the collapse of the Roman Empire? Can Bitcoin adoption happen fast enough to save the greatest empire the world has ever seen from repeating history? Leave a comment and let me know your psychopathic thoughts. Like this video if you made it this far, and of course, subscribe to the Swan Bitcoin channel for more Bitcoin signal. Also, check out this video by my boy Rowdy on inflation, it's excellent, and my video last week on Bitcoin and the new monetary order. Peace.